The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Everyone, get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's time for a new tack. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. He's Willie Dills Gregory. She's Jocelyn Moffat. And we're here to talk more Hearthstone. Also, just like full disclosure, I'm extremely sleep deprived, and Jocelyn has a killer spider in her recording room. So if I just fall over and start snoring, and Jocelyn runs out of the room and burns her house down, Dills has our back, and we'll solo this show.
Well, I mean, my day's not going great either. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, I totally got it. I don't have a spider. I did sleep. Yeah, so apparently I'm doing better than everybody today.
And it's worse though, because it's like I can see it. It's like there's no carpet in my recording room anymore because the stupid thing flooded. So we had to rip out the carpet. So now there's a gap between the baseboard. So he just keeps coming out of the wall and staring at me and then running away when I get up. It's coming for me, I'm telling you. It's big, real big.
Okay. Dealing with spiders is something I have some experience with. My strategy is generally get something like a towel or something like that. Something like where I won't have to come into a lot of contact and just smother the area, bunch, go outside, just throw the towel outside. Come back for it later.
This episode of The Angry Chicken.
No, that towel would be dead to me.
Or throw the towel out later.
Or
just start stomping away at it. That's another technique I have.
So fun fact: any towel companies that listen to The Angry Chicken, we're taking sponsors for spider killing towels.
Actively looking for spider killing towel sponsorships.
Yep.
Preferably one that can deliver in the next 10 minutes.
This episode brought to you by Spider Killing Towels. Use the code.
That's actually that's a service. Like these days I could get a burrito delivered right now if I wanted to. I could get my groceries delivered. Bring me a guy to kill the spider.
I think they have those. I think they're called exterminators.
Well, no, not like an exterminator. I don't need an exterminator. I just need like a teenager who's just just got an app on his phone. He's like, oh, yep, I got this.
You just want a dude with a towel.
Doesn't realize his own mortality yet, so he's totally fine with spiders.
Yeah. We don't need all that. We don't need John Goodman to show up in like a jumpsuit. No,
just someone who's not afraid of spiders who can come and step on it for me.
The guy who's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm not scared of a spider.
Hey, you pinged me on Towel Smackers. Yes, I did. Come right in,
no,
please.
That's something totally different, Garrett. Yeah. Don't Google that guy.
Towel Smackers.
Towel Smackers.
Are you aware of something that I'm not? Oh, somebody
just spend more time in boys' locker rooms than Garrett. Clearly.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, I honestly, before a couple hours before this show was scheduled to record, I thought it was going to be real quiet, really quiet. But between spider attacks and last-minute Hearthstone news, we've got a bit to talk about.
Sure.
Good news,
actually, okay,
everyone.
Here's go to Fiverr.com.
Oh, no.
I believe Dill's...
I figured it out. Go to Fiverr.com.
Go to Fiverr.com.
Pay somebody $5.
Pay someone to kill something with a towel?
Yeah.
Lovely.
You can get somebody to do some digital marketing, and then maybe they'll kill a spider too.
Oh, it's the best intro to news ever. Hey, there's a bunch of minion type adjustments that was announced today. I didn't see this
Did
coming.
they add spiders to Hearthstone?
They did not, sadly. Arachnid is not going to be a subtype. But giants are becoming elementals. At least molten and mountain giants are becoming elementals.
Okay, why not What? Okay, never mind. Why are they elementals and not arcane giants and frost giants?
I have no answer for the frost giant, but the arcane giant is magic?
I mean,
Yeah, I would say like
elementals,
molten
can't they
giants
be
are
magic?
like fire elementals, and mountain giants are earth elementals, kind of, maybe-ish.
Okay. So they can't be magic elementals?
Well, if you're thinking in like a Warcraft universe, then I would say not really, because anything arcane definitely falls more like under controlled by mages, and they're not like the elements per se, right?
Okay.
Like your
So an
elements are,
elemental,
like,
let's just be clear. It's something that is either earth, wind, fire, or water that has come to life, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, that's, yeah?
So it doesn't specify frost, but shamans have frost spells.
Well, I'd consider anything that's frosty to be water.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that.
That's fair. That's fair.
But chat
So,
room
okay,
is
Arcane
pointing out
Giant I get. In chat they're saying,
Arcane Tyrant is an elemental.
yeah, they're saying it's a construct. Sure.
Mm.
Because Arcane Giant, yeah, isn't that was introduced in Karazhan, so it was like invented by a wizard, essentially a mage, right? It was created.
Yeah. I mean, heck,
can
you
see
can
that.
you can go watch the Warcraft movie and watch shirtless Medivh sexually craft a construct.
A golem, yeah.
Yeah.
With his shirt off, yeah.
Why was that in that movie?
I don't know. To introduce his character. It was a weird way to introduce him, wasn't it? Okay, so yeah, and then Leon Lewis, GJ, says Thunder, Light, Dark. Yeah, there's like lots of elements, apparently.
Yeah, and then there's...
we have here on Earth.
Chat room also brings up Arcane Tyrant, which is an elemental, so... Odd.
Yeah, if
Wait,
some
which one is?
arcane
Oh,
things.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so some arcane things can be elementals, then why aren't all arcane things elementals?
The whole point of this change is to be more consistent, too, right?
Yes.
Mm.
Well, is it because
Almost,
it's oddly like flavor and lore skewed if you in the writing, like there's a bit of notes in here, especially when we get to the end and they're just straight up. I mean, I'm just gonna scroll down. They're just straight up changing the art for Witchwood Grizzly, which
is kind of funny because hunters can tame, or at least Beastmaster hunters can tame spectral beasts in Warcraft. So the fact that he looked like a ghost is still fine. He's still a bear.
Yeah. I have an invisible porcupine as a pet
Exactly.
in World of Warcraft.
There's ghost moose
It
too.
is a spirit beast.
it's very strange. This is one of those things where had we somehow landed on this conversation a while ago that, oh, but it's a beast, but it's a ghost. Like I feel like wouldn't it be cool if they changed the art, would come up, and then I would come in with yeah, they would never do that. That's really weird. But here they are. I would never have expected this to be something they would do or think is important.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with the part, like, while we're talking about Witchwood Grizzly and what's a beast and what isn't, I do agree with the moonkin thing. Like, you shouldn't be able to tame a druid.
Yeah. Yeah, a moonkin
Or,
should
like,
not be
yeah.
a beast.
Yes.
That's a druid in moonkin form.
Yes. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
No matter how many of the friends that I play World of Warcraft with really, really want to skin druids in PvP.
Well, yeah, that makes sense too. I'm
Yeah,
on board with that.
And Kraken is a beast. I agree with that as well. Witchwood Piper is a demon. I
Yes.
agree with that.
And
I
Witchwood
just
Piper
don't
was
understand
actually, Witchwood Piper was actually one that came up when Witchwood was actually introduced. I had a whole conversation with somebody on Twitter being like, she's clearly a satyr. Why isn't she a demon? I'm like, ask Hearthstone, because
Yep.
satyrs are definitely demons. So
Sure.
I'm glad they made that change, because lore-wise, that 100% makes sense.
Yeah, you mentioned that back when we first previewed Witchwood Piper. You're like, why isn't she a demon? And I was just like, satyr, I don't care. And you're like, no, it's important. Lore reasons. And Hearthstone agrees with you. It just took him a while to get there.
Now, hold on. There is an interesting another inconsistency. Druid of the Claw turns into two beasts, but that's a druid in
That's
beast
true.
form.
Well,
There's no perfect answer, is there?
Well, that I would argue because I'm 99% sure in World of Warcraft when you come across wild moonkin are not just druids. There's also just moonkin that exists in the world. They are considered humanoid, aren't they? They're not considered beasts. Whereas
they're considered humanoid. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, whereas bears and tigers or panthers, giant cats with pointy teeth are considered beasts in Warcraft. So that I can kind of get behind, because I actually remember in vanilla having skinning and killing a moonkin and being like, why can't I skin this?
Chat room's also bringing up that Worgen should be beasts. I agree with that. The Warcraft universe does not agree with that.
Yeah, that's consistent with the MMO, however.
Yeah.
Worgen are not considered beasts.
Worgen are humanoids as well.
Mm-hmm. Falls under the same purview as moonkin there.
Yeah.
But this has got to be one of the most unique updates to the game we've received. I mean, the giant changes are very cool. This is going to actually, I think, open up a little more power for any elemental-based decks. The rest of these, I think Witchwood Piper is just to make Jocelyn happy.
Exactly.
The actual only deck I'm thinking of that actually might use this, which isn't currently a meta deck, is the Elemental Mage deck that runs Mountain Giant, because it also runs that draw 3 cards for 2 mana thing.
Yes, yeah.
So it's able to play early Mountain Giants. I mean, it plays Mountain Giants anyway. It's just not. It's not a good deck. I mean, I love the deck. I enjoy playing it. It doesn't run any spells. Just runs tons of minions and Frostlich Jaina. And it draws a bunch of cards. It generates elementals. If you play Archmage Arugula, then you get a lot of extra cards that way too in your hand. So
Dills, it's Arugula. Come on. I'm sorry.
This is like Kazamicus. It's like, why? Why did we just add a whole bunch of random things to this name?
Okay, but so you mentioned Elemental Mage, but do you think that there's ever an argument for either or both of these in the big mage that we're going to talk about later on today? Because they have Frostlich Jaina too. So is there any argument, since these would essentially heal for 8, of including them in that deck?
I don't think so.
I'm thinking more if either of them, probably the Mountain Giant, just because it seems like Big Mage would make a lot of use of that, because they always seem to have a lot of cards in their hand.
Molten Giant is a wild card, so you can't play it anyway.
Oh, right. They Hall of Famed it,
Hall of Famed it when they reverted the nerf. But, I mean, I guess technically you could, but I think that deck just wants to run all the removal, and the minions are there for very specific reasons, not just here's a big bomb, Mm-hmm. So I doubt that they would start running it. It is interesting to note that, you will now be able to plop one of these down and heal for 8, which is very nice. But I don't know. I get the sense not there. I could see some sort of a wild elemental Echo Mage thing. Could be kind of cool. Because in Wild, you can still do things like Ice Block and stuff. And if you could get Molten Giants down with Echo of Medivh and make a whole bunch of Molten Giants, and then you're down real low in health and you have Ice Block, and then you just heal for, 24 or something like that the next turn, 32, and you just win.
The only thing that I could think maybe of swapping out, and maybe this is more of a if you don't have a lot of legendaries or don't have a lot of dust and you've got your giants sitting around now, could be an argument for if you don't have Syndragosa, then maybe you could swap in now an elemental giant. Possibly.
The reason why Syndragosa is there, though, is because it allows you to create water elementals in the late game, because it puts 0/1s on the board.
But I mean, if you don't have it or you don't have the dust, then
absolutely. Also,
people always want substitution.
If you look at Bunny Hopper's list, it's very teched for a tournament, right? He's got Skulking Geist and all that kind of stuff. If you're just talking ladder, you could definitely just drop a Novice and a Syndragosa and throw in 2 Mountain Giants. I'm sure the deck would still function.
I'm more excited about going back and trying the more elemental forward mage with these changes.
Yeah, that's a super fun deck too. Kibler played a lot of it early on. It's tough though because it doesn't run any spells at all. So when you fall behind, you have no real catch-up mechanic, right?
No, it feels
kind of relies on battle cries from elementals to stay on top of the board.
It reminds me of Druid in a weird way, except even Druid has a few ways through spells to try and get back on board. It's just rare compared to something like a more traditional mage.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, like, you also generate a bunch of spells through the Ruby Spellstone, and sometimes those allow you to come back. But yeah, it's like, man, Voodoo Doll, I think, is your only actual removal. And then you've got things like, Blaze Caller and stuff. But outside of that, you're just like, I hope I'm not behind. And sometimes you are.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, this is interesting. And again, don't be surprised when your Witchwood Grizzly grows hair.
Sure.
It's such a weird
Too
change.
spectral. Yeah.
Oh, it's so bizarre. So bizarre. But
I think they should just go and make everything spectral into beast as well. Like, I don't care if they're ghost beasts or what, like spectral
Are
spiders.
there any like
a beast.
spectral? Yeah, spectral spiders. Right. I was gonna say, are there any spectral things that would be beasts if they were not ghosts?
just gotta go all the way back
if
to Haunted
Arphis
Creeper.
is a beast, spectral spider should be a beast.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because they discussed Arphis too, and they say like we thought about changing him, but we changing the art on the Witchwood Grizzly because Arphis is actually seeing play through Deathstalker Rexar, and if we made him not a beast, then he couldn't be seen anymore or wouldn't be seen anymore at a Rexar. So, I mean, that very much seemed like a card flavor / play rate / balance choice. So, yeah, I mean, go and change all the ghosts, you guys. All the ghost
Arphis is
beasts
super
should just
fun.
be beasts.
Arphis is super fun with Deathstalker Rexar, and yeah, I a card like Deathstalker Rexar means that anytime there's a beast tag there, it's going to be relevant, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I don't feel super strong about these changes, other than the Giants. I think it's rad, and I'm excited to play around with them.
I will say I'm excited for them to be considering things like this, not just new expansions and balance changes, but let's continue to try to work on making the game more consistent overall. I know a lot of people hated that last patch that had some consistency moves. They seem to listen as well. I think all of this is positive, though, just to kind of keep tinkering and trying to keep making the game better in small ways as well.
Yeah, that's a good point to bring up because there's a lot of explanation in here, and nothing in here is, I think, going to stir the ire of the community like the change to tests.
Yeah, I don't think Reddit's going to be up in arms about this one.
Yep. In other news, the HCT Summer Finals wrapped up this weekend. And
Yep.
It was, man,
it happened.
there were a lot of slow methodical games, my goodness.
Did you guys feel a little bit like disconnected from it at all? Because I found like when I was watching the matches, it's almost like I had forgotten who qualified because all of these guys are, even though it's called the Summer Championships, these are the guys that qualified in like February and March. And it felt like it was just so long ago that like by the time we get to it at the end of June, beginning of July, I'm really invested in who's doing well right now, which may or may not be these guys. Like, I felt a little bit, just disconnected from it.
It's supposed to feel like the end of the season, right?
Yeah, except the end of the season one was like all the way at the end of March.
Yeah, maybe that's like a failing of just kind of the build and how they discuss all this stuff. Like it should feel like the pinnacle of the summer season, right? But
well, yeah,
maybe it
because
just
we're
felt like another
coming
tournament.
to the end of season 2 now, and like season 2 runs through July, so it's just like, shouldn't we be having the summer championships at the end of July with all the people who qualified in the last 3 months? Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
That makes more sense to me. So like when I was watching it, I was like, I'm feeling really good for you guys and congratulations on getting this far, but like, I don't know, it just seemed to take too long to me. So I was just a little bit like, meh.
The through line was not great.
And because they've got all these other HCT events going on in the meantime, that even when the playoffs happened, it was kind of like, oh wait, what?
Yeah. I mean, we've had DreamHack, we've had all of these other events as well, and you're absolutely right. The names that are kind of in the forefront of our minds, especially following something like the balance changes that we had. That's and I'm a little biased here. I am always more interested in professional Hearthstone after a change rather than a month or two into a meta. But I can't imagine I'm alone. Like, I'm sure a lot of folks have gotten back on the Hearthstone esport train after the changes, and so very few of the players here are kind of in our minds at the moment.
Well, I'm glad that I'm not the only one that kind of felt like that. And I mean, I watched the first 2 days. I missed day 3, and then I watched some of the final day. So I still saw a pretty good chunk of the tournament. And I mean, I had my champion that I was cheering for, and he made it through to the final day. So I was happy about that. But just overall, like, and I think it probably has a lot to do with the meta too, because there were so many like super, super slow matches, like to the point that I accidentally fell asleep for like, because I had been at a bachelorette party the night before. I accidentally fell asleep for an hour and a half, and I woke up and it was still the same match, you guys. I was like, wow, okay.
It's a little golf-like right now. So if you've ever really, really, really hoped for a control-heavy meta, we've arrived.
Yes.
It's here.
Yeah.
And
there wasn't even a lot of people with aggro lineups. Like usually there
was two aggro lineups.
Yeah.
Turna
usually
and
there's a
Gillen
bunch of people who are just like, yeah, I'm just gonna smash your face, and they tend to do well, but no, not this time.
No, Hearthstone's very greedy right now, and it's greed versus greed, and it led to some great matches. I mean, I think the finals were phenomenal. Everything up until the last game of the finals were actually pretty close games. But eventually, someone's going to draw poorly, right? And that's what we ended up seeing in the last game.
Well, Bunny Hopper also drew insanely well in the last. Like, he drew insanely well the entire tournament, to be fair. But
yeah. I mean,
that last game was just like, oh yeah, no, with even Warlock draws like this, you just don't beat them. Like,
yeah.
they
Also,
just drop giants and 4/8s and whatever.
It was also Taunt Druid with no ramp. Like, the first piece of ramp was Nourish on 5. Yeah. Like, that's so bad for that deck.
We did see Taunt Druid do pretty well in the tournament, though, I thought. It seemed like one of those decks where you're like, sometimes you just can't beat it. They Hadronox, they cube Hadronox, they Witching Hour, just can't win.
It didn't go so well in the first couple days. Like in the group stages, it seemed like Taunt Druid was definitely the deck that everyone seemed to be targeting. So there was like one point halfway through day 2, I think, when the only matches that Taunt Druid had won were actually mirror matches. So a Taunt Druid had to win. So in group stages, it seemed to be very heavily targeted. But later on, when there were only a couple that made it through to the top 8, then it started to get some more wins for sure.
I pretty much walked away from this tournament with just one thing in my head, and that's, hey guys, Death Knights are really important.
Yes. They're very, very powerful.
Like some of these, it's reductive, but some of these games really felt like, who found their Death Knight first?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And well, sometimes you find the Death Knight and your name is Blood Trail and you really blow it. That was an unfortunate game there. I don't know if anybody saw that one as well, but he had a chance with Deathstalker Rexar against the full board to pick Rush, Poisonous, AoE, clear everything. And he didn't pick it.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
I mean, I think that kind of speaks a little bit to the potential complexity of Deathstalker Rexar, right? Like, if someone could, like Blood Trail, could accidentally miss something like that, it's like there's a lot of beasts. There's not a lot of time. There's a lot of decisions to be made, and you can have one thing in your head, and if those options don't come up, you're like, oh crap, just pick anything then, like get on with my turn. But then you're like, oh no, wait, I didn't see the Matrix.
He made like 3 or 4 really bad misplays already at that point, so I think his brain was just kind of done with that game.
Mm-hmm.
He just kind of fried off of that one.
Yeah. But that's also, I mean, that's kind of what's interesting in this meta, like that type of stuff. That's where I think the big standouts, the big highlights come from. But the thing is that they're kind of subtle. And this is kind of what I was getting at in the finals as well. Like there were some really good games. Specifically, I think it was game 1, right, of the finals. It was the Shutterwalk up against A8's Priest, wasn't it? And like, I don't know, from a distance it didn't look that close, but then Kibler and Frodan started deconstructing it. It was like, oh yeah, no, if the random freeze off of the Shutterwalk did not hit the cleric, there was a 1 card out for A8.
Which, I mean, I know not a lot of people love Shutterwalk games, but I really love Shutterwalk games.
They are interesting.
Oh, do we lose Joss? Or do I lose everybody?
I help out your RNG a little bit, and then did I totally just freeze there?
I think
totally did too.
You both for Skype just crapped the bed.
Hiccuped. Yeah. No, but I think the issue people have with Shutterwalk games is it's not a combo that you collect. It's a combo that just happens throughout the game, and then eventually you just play this card, and it doesn't seem like you did something cool to get there. Like you were just kind of playing, and then a Shutterwalk.
Yeah.
So I think that's why people have a problem with it. But I do find the games to be kind of like it's an interesting dynamic to have. This is one of the reasons why, like, we're going to talk about Big Spell Mage later, but it's one of the reasons why I don't know if I would bring it. I know it worked out for like Bunny Hopper, but it seems to me like the control deck that doesn't have like a way to just kill you. It's like if it goes against something like a Shutterwalk, it's just like, oh, how do I win against this? Like the only way I really win against other control decks is to make a lot of water elementals, right? And if somebody plays properly against it, then they don't let you make water elementals. So it's like the control deck that has no win condition type of thing. And Shutterwalk is just like the ultimate, like, I have a win condition that I will get to eventually. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
And I'm a control deck. Which I like that it exists.
Yeah, I mean, they're both. Both the Big Spell Mage versus the Shutterwalk Shaman. In a certain way, both come down to 1 card. The Death Knight for the Mage and Shutterwalk for the Shaman. But the Shaman is just more proactive because the Big Spell Mage is just reactive up until it starts getting water alleys on board.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, at least Shutterwalk Shaman, you're like, I play Serenite Chain Gang. Like, I played something. Check me out. Control deck that's playing stuff. By the way, chat is still just talking about Ghost Beasts. We're so far past that now, but that's all they're talking
I'm
about.
okay with it. Yeah,
it's a big deal.
Warming the can I say cockles of my heart? Is that a thing?
Yes, that's a thing.
Sure.
I didn't want to pull a nip it in the butt again. So.
As long as you remember the wolves part at the end, you're fine.
Like I said, if you're a podcaster, if you talk for a living, eventually you're going to say something that makes no damn sense. Can't be afraid of it. Embrace it.
Oh, I embrace it, Dills, which is highly documented through thousands of episodes of podcasts. But yeah, I mean, overall, like, it kind of comes down to, I think your enjoyment of the Summer Finals comes down to, like, do you like control matchups? And if the answer is yes, this was your finals. And if the answer was no, it was not. But I mean, it was very good plays. It's just, at a certain point, I'm just like, yep, I've seen this matchup enough. Like, we can move on. I was very excited that A8 was in the finals because I just wanted to see more of his priest.
I'm glad that we finally came to a consensus on how to shorten his name. That he's not A83, he's not A83 and a whole bunch of other numbers.
This is where, like, I know I've mentioned it on, I think, every podcast I've ever done, but can we revisit the fact that I think we should do away with handles in esports?
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day.
It's time to die.
If you watch, so I compare esports a lot of times to things like, I don't know, poker on TV or things like that. And yeah, we call Phil Ivey and Daniel Negreanu, and yet here we are saying Tom 60229, the world champion.
Well, even like the less ones that are just names still, like but Bunny Hopper. Like, I'm watching Cora at the end, like, and address him as Bunny Hopper, and I'm just like, this is undercutting how awesome this is. Like, Morheim's there giving him a trophy, confetti's coming down, and we're like, Bunny Hopper, how does it feel? I'm like, God, this is just so stupid.
I'm with you. I mean, it's even like, I would rather say Dan Chow than Frodan. Yeah.
His
and
name
Brian Kibler than Kibler.
Kibler.
Like, come on, man.
I don't know. It's
well, and then it's funny because they call Cora, not Songbird.
Sure, I know. And yeah, TJ is TJ, even though he has a thing.
Yeah.
I don't. It's as a cumit or as something weird, right?
Something cutie, I think.
I don't know, whatever.
I assume it's like short for cutie, but maybe it's not.
Sure.
It's such a peeve of mine. Like, and no one else seems to care. So like, I'm just sitting here. I'm like, am I alone? I hate it so much.
No, I mean, look, this is legitimate. Like, if we want to get esports to legitimacy, I think we need to start calling everybody a damn name. You know?
Yeah,
I really do. I think we need to start thinking of them as human beings and not gamer tags.
Yeah. Because too, like, at what point do we like? There's gonna be legal ramifications at some point. Like, if someone's just named Coca-Cola, do we call them Coca-Cola? Like, there's a player in Heroes of the Storm called Goku. Like, at what point does Dragon Ball Z start suing Blizzard?
Sure. And I mean, there's some things where it's kind of fun, right? Like dog, that's fun.
I mean, I did not want to get into ranking handles because yes, there are handles that are way cooler than others. Frodan,
yeah,
I think that's a cool handle. It sounds like a name. But yeah, he's calling someone A8, even though he shortened it.
Someone just has a string of letters and numbers. It's like, yo, dude. Clearly, you just, I don't know. How do you even get to that point? How do you say, well, I'm Tom 60229? Like, what?
Well, and I think this has a lot to do with just like the rise of esports in general, is that there's just a lot of people, like, I'm pretty sure that was even in A8's interview, is he literally said, I pretty much just randomly hit the keyboard. This is what came out. I just wanted to play Hearthstone. I never thought it would amount to anything. And same with Tom. Like, I think Tom's is like his like grade and classroom or something. So basically like his student number is what he used to make his battle tag. Because again, didn't think it would ever come to anything. And now it's actually important. And they're just like, well, I can't change it now because this is how I'm known. So
yeah, and it happens, right? Like, so I don't know. I just find it very odd. And every now and then we get into a situation where someone whose name is just face on the keyboard in the finals, and it reignites the fact that this is kind of silly, and I don't know why we're still doing it.
And I acknowledge the fact that I go by Dills, so it's not like,
Wait, Dills isn't your real name? What?
A lot of people think that it is like my real last name, but yeah, like that's, I don't know, it's like a word that makes sense, and so sometimes these don't bother me, but yeah, then you get A8 whatever, and you're like, damn it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like we could just solve the whole thing by just calling everybody David.
Their name.
Or whatever their name happens to be, right?
I mean, freaking Bunny Hopper's real name is Raphael. How awesome is that?
Yeah.
Your winner.
Raphael the champion.
Your winner for the summer championship is Raphael from Germany. Like, yes. Sign me up. That's the headline I want to read, not Bunny Hopper. Anyways, sorry. Rant over.
Don't battle tag shame him.
It's fine as your battle tag. It's just, in interviews, it's kind of odd. But whatever the case is, like I said, rant over. Before we move into strategy and talk some big Spell Mage, we have a sponsor to thank today, and that's MeUndies, which means, once again, listeners, I want you to think about your undies. We do this every time. I know it's a little funky, a little odd. Not as odd as handles in professional esports interviews, but still But MeUndies is here. They're here to help. They're here to give you really soft underwear, like really soft, so soft. It's great. It's wonderful.
Really, really, really soft underwear.
And socks.
And socks. Yeah. They sent us socks.
I don't know if you guys have this, but like I don't. My entire wardrobe is not full of MeUndies yet, so I now have like MeUndies days, and those are good days.
They're better than all the other days.
Yeah, you're like, and it's funny, they always seem to happen right after laundry day. Like the first 4 days are like MeUndies days.
I save them if I know specifically that I'm gonna be like sitting in the car for a long time, or if I know like it's gonna be a long stream day and I need to be really comfy. You bet that's a MeUndies day.
Okay. Oh, that's so right. I didn't think about it, but you're right. I'm this way with shirts. Like I have favorite t-shirts and the first things that I wear out of laundry, and now I apparently have that with underwear. So thank you, MeUndies. You should check them out at meundies.com/TAC/tack, for like the Angry Chicken. That's what it stands for. And they have an offer for the Angry Chicken listeners. You can get 15% off your first pair of MeUndies and free shipping. Again, that's 15% off plus free shipping and the guarantee that you and your MeUndies will be very happy together. So get your butt over to meundies.com/TAC and treat yourself. It's great. They got the 100% satisfaction guarantee. They have made 3 Hearthstone podcasters talk to you openly and publicly about the underwear covering their butts. So
Mine doesn't cover my butt.
TMI? Or it's really helping our ratings. I'm gonna go with the last one. I think our ratings just went up. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Welcome.
We thank MeUndies for their support. Once again, go check them out at meundies.com/TAC for 15% off your first pair. All right, let's talk some big Spell Mage.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay.
Kilronock in the chat room says Joss is a Cisco fan. Joss. That's all I got.
Oh, man.
That's all I got. I'm done. I promise. Ooh. All right. Yeah, so we're talking Big Spell Mage today. If you're watching the video version, I have 2 versions up. There are not a lot of differences between them, but we are looking at what HS Replay says is the most popular version of Big Spell Mage on ladder right now, and also Bunny Hopper's championship-winning deck list.
I think the biggest difference here is really just that he's not running the Witchwood Piper. Instead, he's running a Novice Engineer. That means he just kind of thinks, rather than just drawing like Arcane Artificers, I'd rather just draw a card in my deck, right? So, because that's really the reason for the Piper is, I think on ladder, that does make sense, the Witchwood Piper, because Artificer is really important on ladder when you're facing a lot of aggressive decks, and in a tournament, when you're facing more control decks, you need to be teching for other things. You need to be finding other cards, right? But
yeah, I think he made the really good read in this tournament that there wasn't going to be a lot of aggressive decks brought, that it was going to be more of a control combo meta, and so he came prepared for that as opposed to trying to armor up because everyone was going to be aggressive. So it was a good read. He was just
thinking, our Witchwood Piper never draws me Frostlich Jaina. Right? Yeah. Sometimes Novice Engineer does, so makes sense to me. Also, Novice Engineer, you can ping when you do have Frostlich Jaina.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a water elemental.
I love that really, really weak bodies is a positive in this deck.
Yeah, like Sindragosa early on, people were messing with that, but a lot of people kind of changed their mind on that and decided, no, still too slow. Only good after Frostlich Jaina. But now you see that when the meta slows down, you got time. Like, you got time to play Sindragosa. And previously, you didn't. Like, it was just one of those cards. It was like, I'll never have time to play this card. But nowadays, it's like, yeah, the meta's so slow. Also, the fact that sometimes it just gives you really powerful cards is pretty important because, like, if you're trying to beat Shutterwalk with this really slow control deck, sometimes you're going to need to find, like, some awesome legendary, right? And then kill them with that. So it also helps with that. Also, 8/8s. They hit your face. Yes. They're good.
It's pretty...
I feel like the same sort of thing could be said for Dragon Caller Alana, too. I mean, she's pretty much always been in this deck, but when people were first reviewing the card, it was like, it's just too slow. By the time you spend all that mana playing all those big spells, there's no way you're still going to be alive to play Alana. So it's just this deck in general has become much more popular and much more playable because everything has slowed down so much, especially since the nerfs.
Yeah. I do think that it's a deck still just super reliant on drawing Frostlich Jaina, which it's like you draw her, you win, you don't, you lose type of thing sometimes, which is, I don't know, not my favorite when we're talking cards, right? Like Shutterwalk, it's actually, I was looking at the HS Replay stats. If you have her in your opening hand, a 9-cost card, your win percentage is 60%. And that's the best card to have in your opening hand is your 9-drop, right?
Yeah,
Which
that's
seems weird and
crazy.
backwards. Yeah.
yeah, but it just goes to show how reactionary this deck is. Like this is the type of like archetype. This is the type of deck that I would have been all about when I first started playing Hearthstone. Like 'cause I was all about heavy control, just stall. I don't want to ever take initiative. I just want to keep reacting to my opponent. And once I learned how to play aggro, I don't like playing these types of decks anymore. Like I really want to talk about it because it's something we just saw in the finals and is all over ladder right now. But like personally, this type of reactionary deck is just not. It's weird. I'm having to adjust this. I'm really having to adjust to this fairly greedy meta we have found ourselves in.
I actually, I do like control decks, but I like control decks that have some proactive nature to them. And that is one problem I have with this deck is that you just feel like you just sit back forever. And that's what I was saying too. It's a deck that I think is very good for a tournament meta, but also against pros. I was watching Firebat. So Firebat's been doing a lot of streams like with Zalay and Purple and Amnesiac and like all these, like they'll all get together and all play together, and they've been really interesting. But I was watching some games where they were playing against Big Spell Mage, and they were basically just like, hey, if we never play anything, they can't make water elementals, we'll just win the game. And it's like if you're a really good player, you can figure out how to deny the water elementals. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just, as the Big Spell Mage, you're just like, damn it, what do I do now? I can't do anything. They're not doing anything, so I can't do anything. And I think that's one of the problems I have with this particular deck. But it is very good in certain situations. There's some decks like they can't beat it once they get to their stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you never run out of AoE.
Yeah. You don't really have like we were talking about earlier, like a straight up win condition. I mean, you could kind of call Dragon Color Alana your win condition, but you're sitting around and waiting until they've exhausted like all their removal, all their taunts, all their everything, to the point that you can actually play her out and potentially connect with face for 33. Like,
well, also
or
if
you're Alexing, but
if you're playing against this deck, why are you ever exhausting any removal?
Yeah.
Anyway, like they're not playing. Big Spell Mage is not playing any threatening minions until all of a sudden it's either Dragon Color Alana, Syndragosa, or Alexstrasza, right?
But even then, they're the one-ofs, right?
Yeah, and if you play against it and you know that those are the big threats that you have to deal with, you save your removal for those, you line that up right, and then you just never give them water elementals, and then you win. So it's I don't know. Like I've found that playing against it is. I do like the fact that it's a deck that you can have a solid strategy against, and it's a deck that has a very solid place because it just destroys certain things, right? Aggro decks and stuff like that, it just annihilates them. But it also it's one of those kind of polarizing decks that, it's got good matchups, and then it's got matchups where it's like, if you play this right, you can't win with Big Spell Mage.
Oh yeah, I mean, it has some really, really rough matchups, but it also has some just grossly favored ones as well. There are times where it feels like there's just nothing I could do. Like how do I win against this? There's just that's why it works, right? Like it reminds me of like pre Ice Block leaving Mage. Like I used back when they could play 3-4 Ice Blocks. I was like, man, how do I win? How do I win? And now Ice Block is gone, and even though this is a deck that it's not the style that I prefer, I still find myself in that scenario where it's just like, wow, it just wins.
Well, and especially when they potentially have access to tools that they're not necessarily supposed to have through Arcane Keysmith, right? Now that they can play secrets without playing secrets, then it opens up even more ways for them to just stall you out, right?
Yeah,
like they can have counter spells, they can have ice barriers, they can have mirror entities and stuff, and then it just becomes even more annoying.
Yeah.
So in the tournament meta, Bunny Hopper's decision does make a lot of sense because it's really good against even Warlock, it's really good against even Shaman, good against Miracle Rogue, and good against Taunt Druid, right? So
yeah, Taunt Druid's it gets closer to an even matchup, but it's slightly favored.
Yeah, but it's still, I mean,
well,
still,
you have
I think if you play
right?
it correctly, if you play it correctly, hugely favored because you polymorph something, then they can't witching hour you. So yeah, it's one of the decks that has like a straight up counter to it. But then the problem is that Shudderwalk just dominates it, destroys it.
Yeah, I mean, again though, that's okay because if you lose the one game to the Shudderwalk deck, then it's out, and it's not a best of it's not a best of one format. So when you're selecting your decks, it makes total sense.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, it's one of the decks I've kind of avoided. I don't like it as far as ladder climbing because it is so slow, and you get in these matchups where you're just like, oh, I spent 10 minutes to lose. No. And yeah, I don't really want to do. I don't want to do that on ladder, so I stay away from it. But DHL season 7 coming up. I might have to take a peek into this one.
Might dust it off. Might shine it up. Take it out of the garage for a spin. Yeah, it's I mean, every deck right now has their volatile matchups, right? Like, but this is kind of what we talked about last week. It's like no matter what you pick, there's probably at least 3 semi-popular decks that hard counter you. So it's no different here. So it just kind of comes down to your personal preference. I'm in the same boat as it sounds like you both are. Like in a meta like this where everything's can be kind of volatile. There's plenty of even matchups too, but yeah, I don't want to spend a ton of time trying to eke out a win.
I do like playing this deck though in a tournament setting specifically. Like, I agree with Dills about ladder. Like, it takes a really long time to play these games, but I like it in a tournament meta. It was actually even before the nerfs, it was one of the ones I was thinking of bringing to HCT Toronto. I find it fun and interesting to play, and I think for a tournament specifically, it definitely has its place where you can ban things and try to get that. Like, so you could just straight up ban Shudderwalk and then beat up on all the other popular decks. I think it's a very good tournament pick.
Yeah, as
clearly worked out for Raphael.
Yep, it was a good read on the decks that were going to be represented at the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've got links in the show notes. You can always find those at amove.tv. Just look for the post for the corresponding episode number of The Angry Chicken. These are not hard to find, though. Go to any fan site out there. They're there. They're easy to find. Before we move on to emails, stories, and whatnot, we have another sponsor to thank today, and that's Harry's.com. All 3 of us, that's right, it's called Harry's, but all 3 of us still use Harry's razors. We were converted a long time ago because Harry's is actually the longest running sponsor here over at The Angry Chicken. And as I mentioned last time, like I was skeptical. I don't like I previously did not do the lather up. I didn't like I don't even know, like, what's the common terminology for, like, because I used to just call them straight razors. Everyone's like, no, that's like Sweeney Todd. That's not what you call those. But
is that not what you call them?
No, Sweeney, like a straight razor is like the one that like flicks out and has like the open one single big blade that you like.
Yeah, there's a straight razor, there's a safety razor, and then there's whatever this is. I don't know what you call. What do you call this?
Like when razor? Because there's so many more blades than just one nowadays, and it includes over at Harry's. But I was an electric razor guy for the longest time.
Oh, an electric razor.
Yeah, and then Harry's was like, "Hey, we want a sponsor. We're going to send you some samples." They keep sending us samples, by the way. They treat us very nice. And I was like, "All right, yeah, I'll give it a shot." And I'm like, "Oh, this is just lovely. Taking care of yourself, like, The manscaping is wonderful. It's just lovely. Whatever you call it, whether it's your neck, it doesn't matter. I won't. It's the summer. I'm shaving my chest. There, I admitted it. We've overshared on this episode.
Oh yeah, and my back.
So.
Oh yeah, it's all coming off. Yep.
Dude, you're talented if you can shave your own back.
Yeah. My neck, my back, my neck, and my back.
I would laugh so hard if Dills turns around and there's just a patch in the middle because he can't reach.
No. There's a trick to that. You get one of those back scratcher things.
Whoa.
And a rubber band.
I don't believe that Harry's
shave it easily.
I don't think Harry's condones this behavior. So I would personally not recommend MacGyvering.
I'm just saying, I jury rigged my Harry's razor, and now I can shave my whole back.
All right. Good job, MacGyver. Good job. I'm anxious to see. No, I'm not. No, I'm good. I'm good. But they have they still have an offer for all of the Angry Chicken listeners out there. New customers, you can get $5 off a shave set from Harry's with the code TAC over at harrys.com. That means you can get a trial set, and it comes with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and travel cover for just $3. The shipping is free when you use the code TAC over at harrys.com. Again, use the code TAC at checkout over at harrys.com to claim your offer and get $5 off.
By the way, did you know this? I've been watching Queer Eye. So good.
Are you going to tell me what I should know?
The new one is really good.
Yes.
So apparently, you want to go to your Adam's apple and just shave only below that. Leave this if you're gonna have like the stubble thing.
The stubble.
I think I was going too far up before. Now I've learned. Thanks, Jonathan.
Yeah, because then it kind of looks like it's like drawn on. You need some under chin hair.
Yeah, exactly. Then it looks more natural, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't want a full on neck beard either. There's a certain line. You gotta.
No. Yeah, you want this part
there's
clean.
still trimming that needs to be done.
Exactly. Of course.
So there you go. You can't say that the Angry Chicken isn't a multifaceted well of information. We'll teach you how to play Hearthstone. We'll give you some great deals on razors, but we'll also teach you how to shave.
Sure. Yeah. Also, another shaving tip: don't shave so fast, guys. Slow, long strokes.
Take time. Enjoy it.
You see a lot of guys just doing like, get it all off me. No, slow down.
Steamy bathroom, lather up your neck. It's great. Great way to start the morning. We thank them for their support. We thank you for going to harrys.com and using code TAC at checkout for $5 off. All right, let's take some crazy game stories.
Has the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
You can send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Mike writes in and says, "Hello, chickens. I was recently playing a game as a big spell mage against a quest priest and had my heart torn right out of my chest. During the game, my opponent filled their deck back up by playing Benedictus twice, and cleared my board by playing Psychic Scream 4 times. They healed up by playing Amara twice as well, and I kept myself alive with a horde of life-stealing elementals. After over half an hour, oh my god." I'm so sorry. We both finally ran out of cards, and my opponent had ran out of answers. I had lethal on board and was just waiting for them to click end turn so I could finish things up. They sent me a well played, and I responded in kind. They clicked end turn, and then we both exploded. As that had been the 90th turn of the game, we finished the game in a draw. I haven't been able to open the app again since. With a deck like the current Quest Priest in the meta, do you think they should revisit the 90-turn limit on games? Mike, great story. Let me ask you a question, though, and let me be honest here. Has this ever happened to you before? Have you ever hit the 90-turn limit before?
I feel like this is a very, very specific matchup. Like, speaking of decks that don't have a win condition, Quest Priest is another one that's just kind of like, I live forever!
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, like, this is a great story. Like, this sounds like, from what you've written here, this is the first time this has ever happened to you. When it happens, I would say just one other time. Let's revisit this conversation.
And the other thing is, too, I mean, like, you had lethal on board. So you were literally like, if you'd had 91 turns, someone would have won. So was there something you could have done earlier on that maybe would have helped you win the game in 89 turns? Maybe.
Yeah. Actually, it's an 89 turn limit because it's the start of the 90th turn when you both blow
When
up.
you explode.
Yeah.
Well, then 88 turns.
Sure. You got to kill my turn 89, man. You just got to. Sorry. I don't think they need to revisit it at all. I think it's there for a reason, and we finally actually have a deck that it can matter. I don't think anybody ever hit it before unless they were playing unless they were like
Warrior,
disguised toast trying to do weird things with their friends, right? Like, yeah.
I feel like the first time I heard about it was 3 years ago, maybe? Like, it's been a long time since we've been...
But it didn't happen just in, like, a natural game, really. It happened in games where people were trying to
trying to
pull
break
weird things
Hearthstone.
off.
I'm
Yeah.
sure it was. I'm sure there's a disguised toast about it. Video about it.
Yeah, it's like remember the guy who made like the longest turn ever, where he played like arcane missiles that went off.
Oh yeah, I
Remember
forgot
that?
about that
Yeah.
video.
Yeah,
Oh my god, yeah. I
like
do remember
that's
that one.
how this kind of stuff happened. Now we actually have a deck where this can actually happen on ladder. I think that's the time to maybe consider making it even shorter. To be honest, like,
Yeah.
89 turns. That's we don't
89
really need
turns
that.
and half an hour later. Like, does anyone
Yeah.
want to be playing that game?
Let's go 59 turns. You know what? Let's make it funny. 69 turns. Let's go.
Ah.
Yeah. Let's meme it up.
I think we just solved Hearthstone. We can retire the show now. Like the end all be all of tips we can give is win by turn 89.
Sure.
There's
Yeah.
nothing else we can teach
If
you.
you don't win by turn 89, you don't deserve to win.
This is great. What a delightfully absurd matchup. Thank you for sharing your story with us, Mike. Before we move on to emails, let's thank our patrons for supporting us over at patreon.com/TAC. If you like the Angry Chicken, if you like insane stories about going to turn at 90 and then just randomly, not randomly, intentionally exploding because that's the way the game is designed. If you like getting shaving tips from Dills, check out patreon.com/TAC. That's where you can opt in to subscribe to the Angry Chicken. $1 an episode, $2 an episode, whatever works for you. We really appreciate it. And this week we want to thank our newest patrons, Solo Tarkin, love the name, Timothy O, and Eduardo E. Thank you very much for the support, everyone. And I also wanted to just take a quick moment and do a bit of a PSA if you are currently supporting us on Patreon, or if you are supporting anybody on Patreon, even if it's not us. We would like you to go and please check that your payment information is up to date, because I checked today, and we're almost at 100 current patrons that are have their payment info out of date, which is a big difference. I believe it's a difference of about 2 goals on our Patreon right now.
I thought for a second, you said 2 gold, and I was like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah, we're
That's a difference about 2 gold.
Patreon pays in doubloons.
Yardles.
It's like, how do they know how much 2 gold bars is? Like, I don't know that.
Goals, milestones, if you will.
There we go.
That, I guess, is more phonetically clear. But yeah, whether if you want to keep supporting us or you want to keep supporting anyone that you support on Patreon, always make sure that your payment info is up to date. My bank recently canceled my card because someone stole my info, so I'm going to have to go and do the same for the Patreons that I support. So just give it a
I
look.
just signed mine to PayPal. PayPal never expires.
Oh, I should probably do that. That makes it ridiculous. This is my 3rd debit card this year. I don't know what's going on. I got to stop replying to all those emails that are telling me that I've got like $800,000 coming to me from Egypt.
Those Nigerian princes, man, they'll get you every time.
Yeah, every time. All right, let's wrap the show up with some emails.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, did you get my message?
Yep.
Oh,
Hello, brother.
You may send your emails to the same place as the Crazy Game Stories, tacpodcast@gmail.com. Charlie's going to get us started today, and Charlie says, "Greetings, TAC crew. I was thinking over the nerfs that have caused this quote-unquote balanced meta and started to wonder about if all the classes have had the same treatment when it comes to nerfs. Using Hearthstone Wiki, I broke down how many cards have been nerfed from each class since the game was officially released. It makes for some interesting thoughts that the classes that have had the most nerfs are Druid and Hunter, whilst those with the least is Mage. I then considered Hall of Fame cards, as this could be considered an alternative to nerfs, and Mage has the most. It's worth pointing out that these stats don't take into account neutral cards that were nerfed that had a bias towards one class, e.g. Molten Giant and Warlock. Why do you guys think that certain classes have had more nerfs than others? Is it the hero power, the cards from the classic set, or possibly Blizzard's design philosophy towards certain classes that causes an imbalance? Would love to know your thoughts on the matter. Keep up the great work." Charlie even included a visual which lists the classes, the amount of nerfs, and the amount of Hall of Fames. So,
Very thorough.
yes. Minus the neutrals. But I've never really thought of it in this term, and I don't really think Team 5 does either. I think they pretty much address it on kind of a meta by meta basis, and also what's coming down the pipeline, whether it restricts their design or not.
Also, technically, Rogue has had way more nerfs than anybody else if you consider beta, right? Because I don't know if he's considering
he went
backstab
officially...
and the hero power and shiv and
scrub.
Scrub.
Hi, stream. I live where Thor is very pissed all the time and sometimes hits things that cause the lights to go out. So, looks like we're live again. So, yep, cool. Let's just go ahead and pick up where we left off with your thoughts of the rogue nerfs, Dills, after you listed all the things that were nerfed.
So basically, my point was just that, they're just all merit based, right? And it's not necessarily, this class just needs to be nerfed because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, we accidentally made these cards too good. Let's nerf them. And that's all it really comes down to, right? Like, Mage just never had any cards that had a nerf that made sense. Like, I think it's, but if you think about it, like, okay, Iggy, you gotta go. If you think about it, I thought he was just going to jump off my lap when I started talking, but no, he just stayed. But if you think about, Flame Strike was considered too powerful in Arena. They actually had to pull it back 50% as far as offer rate, right? So things have happened to lots of other cards that weren't just purely a nerf to a card on the ladder, right? And like I mentioned too, Gadgets and Auctioneer, Leroy, Azure Drake, these were essentially rogue nerfs as well. So, lots and lots of things happen. Some of them are obvious nerfs that you can go and look and say, bang, at this moment in time, this card was nerfed for this class. But just things have been tweaked so many times over so long of a period of time that you can't just point to, it's a specific thing. It's, it's like as they come, right?
Yeah, and there's not too much correlation either, because to play on what Charlie's talking about here, does it have something to do with hero power? Does it have something to do with X, Y, and Z? Is there anything that, in any causality here? And I think the answer is no, because most of the classes are pretty close, with the exception of the outliers that have almost no nerfs and almost no Hall of Fames, or none in some cases, like Paladin and Priest. Because if it was true that the hero powers were the issue, Warlock should have the most nerfs by a landslide victory.
Yeah.
But
they're careful with Warlock cards, and then they suddenly weren't, and then they had to make a bunch of nerfs all at once. So
exactly.
And speaking of nerfs all at once, I think that they're also more open to nerfs now than they ever have been in the past. I think we've seen more changes to Hearthstone in between expansions in the last year or so. And back when, say, Paladin with Mysterious Challenger probably could have used a nerf, they didn't change anything. So I feel like the game was just a lot, they were a lot more hesitant in the past. And so in times when things like Mage and Paladin might have been stronger, they were kind of let's not touch anything. Let's just, try to rebalance and fix some things with the standard year rotation, or just the next set will bring in a thing that'll counter the thing that's powerful right now. They were much more passive when it came to making changes to the game. And now they're just oh yeah, this sucks. All right, it's been 6 weeks and, community hasn't figured it out. Nobody likes this. Let's just make a change. And I think that's fine that they're starting to make more frequent changes. And I think we can expect that going forward. So maybe these numbers will change if anything ever gets out of control, like Mage Paladin.
Yeah, I expect to see just the number of adjustments to go up quite a bit. It's interesting to bring up the Mysterious Challenger and Secret Paladin as an example, because it's funny looking back on it now. That was pre the announcement of the standard rotation, right?
It was, yeah. So standard rotation came in right after Mysterious Challenger stuff, right? Because that was our first. It wasn't our first rotation, but I think it was the announcement was right after that.
Yeah, so I don't think they've ever come out and said this, and if anyone can say otherwise, please link to a source and let me know. But I would assume that they knew that was brewing, and they're like, hey, instead of messing with it, let's just, we know standard rotation's coming. Let's just let this play out.
Yeah, it was Grand Tournament, right? Mysterious Challenger. So yeah, that was the first rotation.
Who am I? None of your business. Yeah, so it's interesting. But yeah, I find these numbers interesting, Charlie. There's certainly an interesting kind of thought process to go through, but I think it just boils down to the right changes at the right time based on a wide variety of factors. The majority of the Warlock ones are recent and based on the strength of Death Knights, which are relatively new, Void Lords, which are relatively new, a weapon, which is relatively new. It has very little to do with the hero power in that case. So, other than that, kind of bummed. But anyone opposed to wrapping this up a little earlier than expected, because it is the wrath of God outside my window, and I'm not sure we'll make it through more emails.
Yeah, we're actually butting up against finish time anyway, so
yeah,
makes sense to me.
It's been the day of technical difficulties. We started a little bit late because of some mic trouble.
Sorry guys.
And well, hey, Florida is against me right now, so it happens every now and then. Thank you all for sticking it out through those technical difficulties at home. You're probably not noticing it too much because I hopefully have remembered to clean this up. But around the table before Thor turns the power off again, Dills, where can everybody find your work?
Check me out at Twitter at Willie Dills and twitch.tv/Willie Dills. I'm going to be in San Francisco from Thursday through. Actually, I might not be here for the next show. I was just thinking about this. I got to look at my itinerary again, but I'll be coming back early next week. But I will be doing some wrestling stuff with Justin Robert Young, so keep an eye on my Twitters, and I'll probably do some IRL streams from there as well, so check me out.
Sweet, dude. Well, we should be getting Ant on very soon, so maybe he'll fill in for you.
Nice. Okay.
Jocelyn, how about yourself?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. Don't really have anything super crazy going on right now. I guess I haven't talked about it in a while, but if you guys do like Hearthstone, you like Hearthstone esports, then check out BattleNet Sports. It's where I do a weekly rundown of Hearthstone esports. It's about 10 minutes long. There are all the other Blizzard esports in there as well, but I think they usually link to where all the different segments start. So if you're interested in a weekly rundown of Hearthstone esports, again, that is BattleNet Sports. Go check it out.
Awesome. I'm Garrett Art on Twitter. All of the shows that I do can be found at amove.tv. I'd like to point to a very personal project, which is my typically solo show called R2T2, which you can find by searching for R2-T2 wherever podcasts can be found. I had my wife, Katie, on the show this past weekend, and we took a really nostalgic trip down memory lane for vanilla World of Warcraft, because it's been in our minds lately because of Classic coming out, and also because they're burning our first original starting zone in Battle for Azeroth. So if that sounds interesting to you, go find R2-T2 wherever podcasts can be found. Thank you again to our patrons over patreon.com/TAC. Huge thanks to our producers, Declan H, Sean C, Johnny S, and LVE. Very much appreciate the support, everybody. As always, patreon.com/TAC is the best way to support this podcast, best way to support the three of us. Very much appreciate it. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. We will see you next week for episode 271. But until then, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!